Right. Awesome. So once again, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for working with us through our few little technical difficulties trying to get us going. Hopefully the sound is working for everyone. Feel free in the chat to help each other out with any technical issues if you figured it out on your own. We definitely appreciate that. Also in the chat as we go along, if you don't mind putting your questions there, we will take questions via chat as we go along. Some of them, if we can get to them as we go, we will answer questions as we go, but we definitely will save some time at the end for questions as well. For all those, this is your first time with us, thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Lawrence from 3A Composites USA, based in Davidson, North Carolina. I'm the Learning and Development Manager here, been on board here about 1.5 years now. And with us today, we have some faces that you know, and Doug, and he's going to introduce himself in a second, but also some friends of ours from SwissQ, Jason DeLuca and Michael Himmelgarn, lovingly known as Hemi. So I'll hand it off to Doug and we'll go on down the list to do some introductions here. All right, Doug.
Hi, good afternoon. Doug Twitchell with 3A Composites. I'm the Director of Distributor Relations. Been at 3A for a little over 20 years now.
All right, I guess I'm next. I'm Jason DeLuca. I'm from SwissQPrint, application specialist and demos. Been at SwissQPrint for about 4 years, and looking forward to talking about the new material here.
And I'm Michael Himmelgarn with SwissQPrint. I'm a territory sales manager, and I've been with SwissQ since 4 years ago.
Awesome. I will answer one question early on here. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is. This is being recorded, so you will be able to access it after we're done here. One other thing, just for the sake of the connectivity, if you could keep your videos off, except for your 4 panelists here, we would greatly appreciate that as well. But jumping right in, once again, thanks to our friends here for being with us. I wanted to say a quick thank you to a few other folks that may have been with us early on in this process. We just discovered it was roughly about 6 months ago that we originally went through DIBOND and then spent some time with DIBOND Mirror. Decided to do some testing and get some help with that. And as we've gone through that process, learned a lot. So I just wanted to give a couple shout outs, folks that jumped on with us in the process. Actually just saw one of them get on. Andrew over at Base Supply, thank you for being willing to test with us. I know we didn't end up getting to do anything, but appreciate your feedback and willingness to jump in with us. Claire Winstead and Gary Spratt at Canon, I want to say thank you to you as well. To Matt Mears at Niplock. These are just partners of ours that I just wanted to call out and say thank you in front of our group, because they jumped in and said, hey, how can we help? How can we learn with you in this process? And that's greatly appreciated by myself being learning and development and by the 3A team here. So as we go forward, there'll be more opportunities to do different things, and we look forward to working with everyone as we continue to grow forward as well. But to get us started here, I'm going to jump back on screen share and allow Doug to kind of take us through what's the big difference. So why did we get away from DIBOND Mirror when we were going to do the original presentation and come back to it again? And what were some of the things that we learned? And in that process, as we talk through today, we'll talk a little bit about what some of those things we learned were, so that we can put some context behind it. But one of the big things was, what's the big difference between DIBOND Mirror and really our other DIBOND surfaces as well? So I'm going to share my screen again with a quick slide and hand it off here to Doug. Talk a little bit.
Well, we were very excited to add the DIBOND Mirror to our DIBOND collection, and we've had it in inventory now for probably just over the 6 months from when we started the webinars about printing and testing on that. So from that webinar a couple of months ago, we created a lot of interest about the product, and people were asking a lot of questions and about printing. We checked with our team over in Europe, as they've had the product available for quite a while, and what their experience was, and their results are very similar to what we found here. So we took that information and found that printing on DIBOND Mirror is very different from printing on our painted surfaces. For many years, if you've worked with DIBOND, you've known that our painted surfaces, the paint that goes on there is specifically formulated for excellent ink adhesion. So we have had great results printing directly to standard painted DIBOND. So what makes this different as an anodized finish, and what are the expectations that we can have printing on a mirrored finish? So we had to experiment with that, and as we've gone through some of that experimenting, we've learned an awful lot. You know, and a lot of times success is measured by expectations. So, you know, if somebody's expecting this to print and adhere like typical DIBOND, you know, you're probably going to be disappointed until we can do some more testing and maybe we can solve some of those issues. If you're expecting to print on it and put it up in an area that can show some really exciting graphics, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all. So it's just how does it fit within the expectations of what you have? So you know, DIBOND right now in the mirror, 4 foot by 8 foot sheets. They're an oversized sheet, 4 foot by 8 foot, 3 millimeters is standard. We have a silver, which is just like a standard mirror that you see. And we have the anthracite, which is a real smoky gray, very, very pretty, very rich looking material. So what's it going to compete against in the marketplace? It's going to compete against other plastic mirrors like acrylic, polycarbonate. You know, some of the advantages, DIBOND is extremely rigid. So where acrylic, if it's on any uneven surface at all, you're going to get the funhouse effects. Polycarbonate, you get the same image distortion because of flatness and durability. Glass, you know, if it breaks, sharp edges, where with the DIBOND, it's a virtually unbreakable material. Very lightweight. You're going to get close to the reflective quality that you get with glass, but you're going to get a very safe product in that it's not going to shatter and break. So typically sold through our distribution network. Our distributors in your area are all going to be listed under our 3A Composites USA website, and you can go on there and find the distributor in your area that would carry inventory of the product. With that, I'll go back to you, Michael.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for that. And for those that are listening, we do have, like I said, if you want to put your questions in the chat function, we definitely will collect those and answer as we go along, or maybe save some to the end. But as we continue, I wanted to give a moment to Hemi to tell you a little bit about SwissQ and about the company that are our guests on today's webinar. So Hemi, if you're there, we'll go ahead and love to hear from you.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. Hey, thank you very much for inviting us, Michael. And we look forward to continue to be a special partner and do testing for any new products you have coming out. But if you haven't heard of SwissQPrint, we've been in the UV print market for 20 plus years. Lastly, we were part of Zune until 2007 when we started SwissQPrint. We are an independent manufacturer of high-end UV printers. We develop, engineer, assembly is all done 100% in-house, and it's all we do. We are a driver of innovation, and we're known for our Swiss roots of precision, performance, and reliability. SwissQPrint America was opened in 2017 in Elgin, Illinois, where Jason resides, and we have printers down there for demos, and we'd be happy to take your files and do any test prints and anything you would like to do. That's a snapshot.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll jump right in here. And at any time, gentlemen, Doug, Hemi, and Jason, I create this more like a conversation. So if you have any input as we go along, please feel free to jump right in. But to get into really the printability of DIBOND Mirror and what that experience was like. Jason, can you give us a little insight on what it was like to get set up and get printing on this material?
So the material itself actually printed really well. I mean, it has an amazing surface. Excellent dot hold, but you know, like you guys had mentioned, we did find that, you know, adhesion wasn't exactly where like the regular DIBOND is, and you know, so there were some challenges when you first sent the material. I felt like, oh, you know, are we doing something wrong? And you know, but through some trial and error, we found that with some primers and some adhesion promoters, we were actually able to really increase the level of what we were getting adhesion-wise. One of the things, and actually came up because of something Doug had mentioned when he was comparing this to some of the mirrored materials. One of the things that I loved about this is a first surface reflective material where the mirrors are almost all on the back side of the acrylics. So the effect that you get with this material far and away exceeds any mirrored material that I had tested before I had gotten my hands on this. So just the ability to get that really bright popping effect from the colors, it has been second to none on anything I've tested.
That is awesome. And speaking kind of as the novice of the bunch, on our end at 3A, we've recently acquired a latex printer. And our associate there, Gail was kind enough to let me come in and figure out what we were doing from our end as far as just trying to figure out how to print on the surface as well. There's a couple other folks that were part of the process that were really instrumental in helping us figure it out too. Having an HP, what is it? We have a
R1000.
Yeah, so we have a R1000 here, a relatively new printer. It's about 1.5 years old, and it's we're still learning. So even with that, and I have some photos that I'll share in a little bit, that we were able to use the ACM settings that we got from HP straight off of the website, load those into the printer, and actually print pretty well without really knowing what we were doing. So it is a user-friendly process and product from that perspective as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move into kind of the do's and don'ts and you know, kind of what worked well. So I'm going to share my screen again here and give you a couple different looks that it's almost like a walkthrough history of what we did with this material. So is everybody seeing why it's different, that screen still? Make sure I pulled up the right one. Okay, perfect. So to get started, like I said, our friends at Canon also did a few test prints with us. So the image that you see on the left is the original image that we had printed. And then of course, on the right-hand side is the image printed on DIBOND Mirror. So with this one, the idea was just to see, well, how well does it coat the surface, and what can you see through the ink actually without having, you know, some of the areas that were clear, whited out, or different things of that nature. So without really going into the detail of that, this is really what a print looks like on DIBOND Mirror. We did it outside to see if we could catch some of the reflection of the sun on one of the few sunny days we had in the process over the last few weeks. And we really saw some pretty stunning results. So again, here with the image and then seeing the image on the mirror, we did see some really stunning results as far as being able to get that reflective quality to come through the ink into the prints that we had on it. This is another one, kind of the same thing, where we just covered the entire surface, and that reflective quality was able to come through and give a nice pop to the image that they printed for us there. And as you can see at the bottom, those were the printers that were used, the OC Arizona 1300, which is also a UV printer. As far as SwissQ, the image in the middle is the original image, and through the technology that they have and just the knowledge and expertise of working with and playing with our material, they were able to actually take the ink out of some of the areas of the print, and we just had that reflective surface underneath. So on these two images, one, that same brick wall we had outside. Second one, unfortunately, I did not get to go to the beach, but we did have a picture of the beach on the wall in the office. So it made for a nice reflective surface to catch, you know, that beach image as well. So again, there's just so many different things that we began to play with, talk about, figure out that we could do with the with this material and with the creative ideas that come along with it. So in that, we got really excited. This is something that we did with our latex. We were writing all over with our test notes, the rest of this particular piece of DIBOND Mirror. But what you see here, again, in the foreground at the bottom is the actual bush that we're in front of. The reflection, of course, is the bush, and then the colorful flowers are our print, where we just used a, I don't think that was a TIFF, that was probably, I forgot the PNG, actually, a PNG image that we used. So all the white came out of the background. We did a flood white behind the ink colors to get it to pop like it is there. But again, just having some different ideas and fun with how we actually printed and then photographed the print. So these are just some of the things that we were able to do, but in that process, we learned a lot of do's and don'ts. So with that, I wanted to kind of kick back over to Jason and see, you know, what were some of the do's and don'ts that you came up with in the process of just playing with this substrate and or with this material, and what would you tell those that were looking to actually try to use it?
Yeah, so really what I found was it's at least until we find maybe some better adhesion promoters that it has more than good enough adhesion to be an indoor type of application. I would assume you could probably do some limited outdoors, but I probably wouldn't do -30, -40 storm conditions, anything like that. But I was really impressed when we had done some of the prints here. Like it held up fairly well once we kind of got past that initial stage of the adhesion testing. One of the big questions that we had going into this was with the reflectivity, would we see anything with stray light, anything causing issues with the heads? And with the extensive testing we did, we didn't find any issues whatsoever with it. One of the big benefits of something like this is because it's so flat, you can run the carrot very, very close to the material. You're never going to hit anything. So really, really consistent. Every sheet was basically the same. We didn't run into anything where, some materials, when you're doing this, you have bad parts, good parts. This was all tremendously easy to print on. The one thing that I think I would probably play with a little bit more is maybe ink film thicknesses to try and maybe bring out some of the colors a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, I thought everything we tested, I would say, worked kind of better than we expected. For the most part, yeah. Awesome.
And this, I guess, is a great place for some of the questions that we're getting to. So the big question here is, what type of adhesion promoters did you use, or what type of primers did you use to get the better adhesion that we saw later in our testing? And so I have that too for everyone in a moment.
We have a in-house primer that we use as a jettable primer through the machine. We call it our SQN primer. It works with all of our ink sets. It is possible to use it as a wipe-on primer and then maybe just run a curing pass over it. We also tested a primer, I believe it's called MA5, and also had fairly good results with that as well. What I would love to test, but I really don't have access to it, would be to maybe put this through a liquid laminator first, or to do something like a corona treatment. I've had excellent results with both of those on other difficult materials, but unfortunately it's not something we really have in-house to be able to try. But I have a feeling that, especially if you could find a liquid laminate that would work with this, you could really make this a much more durable piece.
Absolutely. And the question did come to, what type of adhesion promoters are you using? So thanks for answering that. A couple of the other ones that I'm aware of is that our friends at Canon used were Bohle, B-O-H-L-E, and DIBOND were a couple others that did work pretty well. So I think with what you're using there, Jason, we saw the best actual adhesion with that, but those are just. I would say
most of these are either glass or metal adhesion promoters, at least the ones that I've seen, and I think at least one of the ones that you mentioned. So if you have something that you've tested that has worked on other pieces of glass, I would imagine it would probably have similar results on this.
Awesome, that's good insight. That's definitely good insight. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to go back to our slides real quick, and I know I'm trying to make sure that we didn't have any other questions that kind of fall in this area, and we didn't. So I'd like to kind of just take an aside to take a moment to walk through these last couple images and just get some insights from you on what the process was for these. So starting with our friend here, the Ashton, you know, excuse the picture quality itself from me taking the photo, but there's so much detail in here. I was trying to do my best to find a way to get the reflection so that you, our viewing audience, could see all the detail that's going on in this particular print. So Jason, can you give us some insight on this one?
Yeah, so this comes from a good friend of ours, Color Logic. I'm sure if you've been in the industry for a while or done anything with metallics, you know these guys, you know Mark and the team. But basically the idea with this is it uses reverse curves so that it's very easy to add white under areas that you want to eliminate the reflectiveness from, and then you can keep open the rest of the areas. One of the other fun things about this print is that there's, and it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but most of the lightning is covered in our varnish, which really makes these pictures stand out quite a bit. Unfortunately, I could only have varnish or primer, so in the case of some of the later prints, it was a matter of I'd rather have the adhesion over the effect. But you know, it is possible to get machines with both, and yeah, I thought this was probably one of my favorite prints to do. When you see this thing in person, it's just absolutely breathtaking.
It really is. It really is. And it was one of the first ones we kind of ran around the office with saying, look what can actually be done on this material. So we definitely had some fun with it here. But this next one is the fruits of all of our labor. We just got this one from SwissQ. I guess about a week and a half ago. So after all of the pains and labors that we've been through, this was the final product where we found adhesion to be much better based off of some of the things Jason's already talked about, and then just a print that was phenomenal, just out of this world as far as the quality, the high definition, the color. It was just, it's a lot to behold. Even I'm imagining even on your screen now, that's a picture of the print. So it's pretty fantastic. So can you talk us through this one?
Yeah, actually, one of the interesting things I found out about this print almost by accident is if you view these in almost a lower light environment, when it does catch the light, the effect is almost magnified. One of the other things we did with this, because we were doing so much of the adhesion testing, is I did leave a border around the outside. Specifically because I think you would still see edge chipping on something like this if it was kind of banged around in shipping or anything like that. So the prints are still, again, it's not what you normally think of with DIBOND, but if this was in an area where you were just going to be walking past this and seeing a range of images like this, I think it's tremendous. But again, this one, I think we did a thinner film, specifically on the color in the background. And I really think that makes the effect stand out quite a bit.
Absolutely. Well, we do have a few more questions that are floating in here. So I have one here that says, was there any effect of the adhesion promoter on the finish?
Oh, so yes, there was. I don't know if you took pictures of both of them, but there's actually two samples of this. Yeah. We did two different versions with the adhesion promoter. Because our machines are LED, we have a ridiculous level of control over the way the finish of the ink looks. So one of these, we let the ink cure a little bit differently to where it had a glossy surface, and I believe that's the one that we're seeing in the screen share. Mm-hmm. There's another one where it has more of a matte finish. They both give excellent end results, but it is really nice that you can kind of change the effect and how glossy they look just with adjusting the LED curing settings.
Awesome. Yeah, that did answer one of the other questions as well. These were printed with LED UV inks.
I would also say I wouldn't really, I mean, we've had the old mercury vapor systems before we switched to LED, and you wouldn't be able to do Some of the things, like I wouldn't be able to do a glossy version of the ink with a mercury vapor lens because I wouldn't have as fine a control over it. But the matte version that I did run, which I think was still tremendous, would work absolutely fine with a mercury system as well.
There was another part of that question about speed.
Oh,
Jason,
so
what speed did you run at?
So these specifically, most of my testing was at, I want to say it's a little over or a little under 400 square feet an hour. The reason I had chosen that mode was because I feel like my primer gives the best results in that mode, but there's actually no reason why you couldn't print this in, you know, primer in about 400, and then you could run really the white and the color at about 600 square foot an hour. I just happen to do it all at that mode for convenience.
Awesome. As far as, I don't think we measured speed on our end with the latex printer, but what we did notice is that anything that was a 6-pass or better gave us the best print qualities on using our latex printer as well. So nothing less than a 6. 8 was beautiful, and then when we had the opportunities to get a 10 or 12, we did try those, and of course it was even more defined, but 8 was the optimal pass for our latex that we saw the best results with. Let's see, we'll take a few more questions here. Actually, I think we're right at the end of our time. I know we started a little late, so I'm letting it run a little late here. Well, there was another question with the primers. Is does one of those settings, or does one of the settings seem to bond better than the other, gloss versus matte?
I did crosshatch tests on both, and I would say they both ended up about the same. Again, I don't think I would want to route through this stuff like with ink and whatnot on top of it. It would probably be easier to do your routing first. And then, you know, at least for the SwissQ, use our pin system to really do your registration. But of the two modes that I tested, I would say both of them probably gave the exact same result.
Yeah. We did have one other question. Do paintings copy well on it?
I would say from this print here, you could probably tell that you're going to have extremely vibrant colors. Even from the one on the R2000, I was really impressed with the color intensity that you guys got on your white background. So I would say absolutely.
Excellent. We do have another friend that joined us today. Janet is actually an artist out of New York. So she's going to be doing some painting, oil painting, to test how it adheres to it, and doing some print, not prints, but doing some original pieces, and hopefully getting one showcased in a show up there soon. So just wanted to say hi to her and thank you for joining us in this process of learning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. There you are. So that was Janet. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today as well. And we're looking forward to learning more and more about it, as far as how the paint adheres to it as well, for those that are visual artists in the house that are joining us today too. I will take one last question here that we have, and then we're going to have to close out. But there was a question that said, how is the durability after printing, scratches, scuffs, etc.? I can answer that, and then Jason or Doug, if you want to chime in as well. So just as an example, the print that you see here, that's still on the screen actually, was shipped, and we saw very little damage even in the shipping process. Of course, it was packaged pretty well. As far as scratches and things, there are some, of course you can scratch it because it is an ink finish, but it stands up pretty well to a good bit of brush and abrasion. I would definitely say if it's going to be in low areas, high touch areas, that there's something over it, just to make sure that it's protected. But I guess that kind of goes with the territory here as far as that's concerned. But as far as if it's going to be in a low to no touch area, you can pretty much let the print stand as it is. So this is the other one that we were talking about that has more of a matte finish. I don't know if it really shows up on the screen or not, but yeah, we saw some great performance there as well as far as the avoid or durability and not getting scratches and scuffs very easily in the process. So any other feedback on that, Doug or Jason?
I guess what I would say is I have a habit of using the fingernail scratch test. The first time I printed this, I could easily scratch it off. Even when you and I talked, you could put a piece of tape on it and peel it off like a sticker. On this one here, I've had one in my office now for about 2 weeks, and every day I walk in and I try and pick off the corners of it, and I can't get it off. So, I mean, obviously, maybe on something very small like the logos in the bottom, you may have some luck, but on the border areas, I still have yet to get it off without using a razor blade. So.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that, you know, again, it's that level of expectation, and the ink adhesion is great for particular applications. Are you going to put this in a child's play area in an airport or something like that? Yeah, probably not the best application. Could it go into a retail store behind a counter or up where a lot of people aren't physically handling it and touching it on a regular basis, and absolutely to get stunning looks like this. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for your questions. Oh, well, there was one last one. Do you know of a top coat that can be utilized? We did mention that a little bit earlier. We haven't had a chance to really test them as of yet, but finding a liquid laminator was one of the options that we were entertaining, or actually still entertaining, as far as seeing what the effect would be on that. JC, you mentioned one other thing. I'm failing to remember what it was.
Oh, the Corona treatment, but that's more of a pre-treatment instead of the primer.
Yeah. So yeah, but after, I guess, a top coat, I know our printer, the R1000, does have a top coat that can be a part of the print process. We did try that and it worked pretty well. We were able to see good results with that as far as it not scratching. But we haven't done extensive looking into any other type of top coats yet. So that would be a great thing to find out. And I'm sure as we continue to go forward, we'll do a lot more testing around it and see what else we can figure out with this fantastic material. So again, thank you to everyone for kind of bearing with us as we got started, for bearing with me as I sit with two that have been in the industry a long time, and me, just someone who likes to tinker. So this has been a great experience all the way around. And as we have more opportunities, or if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via the email address that you received the invite from. And I'll get it in the right hands as we need to make sure that we can share with you, talk with you, and share the insights that we get. But other than that, we went over about 10 minutes. Thank you to everybody for hanging out with us for this extra 10 minutes. I think this was extremely helpful. Jason, Hemi, thank you so much for joining us today. Doug,
Thank you.
Best cohort a man could have. Appreciate you as well. And we'll be talking to you all again next month. Have a great rest of the week.
All right, thank you, Michael. Have a good one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.